Hello everyone, this is Brittany here with your art fill of the week, and this week I'm going to be painting this wooden canvas to be fall themed. And with any wooden canvas you want to cover it in either gesso or a white craft paint because it will stop your paint from soaking into that wood and you'll use more paint if you don't do the layer of white first. So it helps the absorbency of that paint into that wood, because wood is more porous than a muslin canvas, which usually if you're buying a store-bought pre-wrapped canvas, it's already gonna have that white layer on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on some of my gesso and cover the entire canvas with that white. And I hope to do this in a step-by-step way that is easy for you to also follow along and can paint your own fall sign with me, or just enjoy doing something else while I paint this. So it's going to be a little bit longer formatted video. Okay, after you've done your gesso or white craft paint layer on the wooden surface or your canvas, we're gonna go in with some colors. So I'm gonna use red, orange, and yellow, and then we're gonna do like a tan. Instead of putting paint directly on my palette, since this is going to be like a marble effect, I'm gonna put the paint directly on this and spread it so that it stays wetter consistency for blending. But for now, I think I'm only gonna do yellow and red. You can either watch me first and then do it on yours, or do yours as I'm doing mine, but you might, like, for your preference, you might just want to do a third color if you would prefer that. So I'm just gonna dot a little bit of color. I'm not going directly next to it. I want to leave a little bit of space. And then I'm gonna do some tan in the center, actually. So one more color, I guess I decided. And then we're just gonna swish our paint a little around. We're not doing anything specific yet. And then I can mix some red in there. So I'm basically almost mixing my paint just directly on the canvas. This is basically just an underlayer to make it even more cohesive so that we don't have that blaring white. See, and I'm getting already some orange just because we're mixing that red with that yellow. Get some of that tan in there. And one paintbrush is fine, but if you really don't want this much blending, you can use 2 different paintbrushes so that you separate your colors a little bit. I'm just covering my entire surface, blending those colors together. And if you watch how I'm doing it, I'm just kind of lazily slopping those colors together and mixing them. And then I can take some dabs of that color and add more red in where I think it needs to be. Getting those fall colors out on my palette or on my surface here. And one thing I'll tell you before you get too far on this is it's very easy to fix your mistakes. If you think that you got a little bit too much red in a spot, you just wait for it to dry and you'll add yellow on top. So it's very easy to fix your mistakes, especially with acrylic paint. Watercolor is a little bit more difficult to completely change the color you've already put down. And I'm already kind of seeing that I didn't leave enough yellow for my taste, so I'm actually going to go over once it dries a little bit. The red kind of overpowered a little bit. Okay, so let me smooth out some of these a little bit. Now we're going to wait for this to dry. I have a bunch of extra paint on my brush. I'm just gonna tilt my canvas a little and get the edges so I'm not wasting that paint and that glob doesn't go into my paint water. So I'm just gonna get my edges. You can do this with your canvas or whatever you're using to paint, or if you're just practicing on some paper, maybe just wipe it off on your paint palette or whatever you're using to put your paint on. Alright, so before it completely is dry, I'm actually going to go in with some more yellow, where I think I Had a little bit too much red, so I'm actually going to put it on my palette this time. Going just with a little more yellow. Make it a little more orangey. It is still quite wet because we used a lot of paint. Just going in, leaving some patches of yellow. And we'll help down here where the blending is between the red and the yellow or tan. And if you're wondering, I am going in with a mostly dry brush, like I'm not filling it with water. I got it rinsed off enough beforehand in the water so that it was a more pliable brush, but not so much that it was full of water. Alright, I think let's actually add one more spot, just like right here. Yeah, that's more what I wanted. A little bit of a differentiation between the colors so it looks a little more marbled. Alright, now we definitely have to wait for everything to dry before the next step. Okay, we're gonna kind of lay a foundation for our path that we're gonna draw or paint, kind of receding back here. Do a little perspective. So next to my yellow, I'm gonna put some of this tan. And get a little water on my brush so it's pliable. Okay, and you're gonna want to separate an eyeball, or you can do a little pencil line or something in the middle of your canvas. So about here is where I'm gonna say my horizon line is, so that's where my path is gonna stop. So let me mix up some paint over here between my two colors. So I'm gonna paint over this that's why I left the middle a lighter yellow with my tan, so I could easily kind of decipher where my path is gonna be. So when you're painting this, you're gonna want your path to look larger here and then go thinner back in here. Now, since I eyeballed that it's gonna end about here, I'm just gonna do like a yellow line like this. And it tapers off to that point. And I'm gonna get some orange in here just so I can better see my path that I'm making. So get some of my orange. Same this side, I'm gonna just box that out a little bit more. Then we can do the same thing with blending two colors. Because our surroundings will become trees and bushes and things. So there's our disappearing path laid out for us. And then I'm gonna go in certain places with my orange a little in that surrounding area. And we're gonna let that dry once more. So, small tip before the next step, if you do not have brown, you can mix complementary colors to get brown. So I can mix red and a green, and that'll give me a brown. So next we're gonna do our trees, our tree trunks. So I'll mix my green and red. And then based on kind of like where you see some shapes in the background that you laid out, like I see kind of a tree shape here, you can draw a trunk down. And we're gonna add in leaves later, so you can kind of form more of your tree later. But if you see kind of what looks like part of your tree already, it can help you. And here, and you still want to remember that everything back here is going to look a little smaller just because it's in the background, kind of like our path is going that direction, so it's going away from you. So some of these trunks back here are going to be a little smaller. Or you're not going to see all of it because there's going to be like bushes or trees in front of it. And don't be afraid of putting it in the wrong spot, or a spot that you find later isn't really a good spot to put your trunk. You can wait for it to dry and then cover it with your fall colors again and just layer on the paint. You layer it up and you won't be able to see it anymore. That's often what my professor in college would tell me, that not to be afraid to make a mistake, because especially with acrylic paint, or I was in college for scenic painting, so it was like the latex paint. You could always let it dry and cover it up and fix it. Obviously you're going to be spending more money if you're going to use a ton of paint, but if you're so focused on doing poorly, then you're not going to do well in the first place, because you're so hyper focused on what if I make a mistake. You also just want to keep an eye out and make sure you're not making them too uniform, and you're kind of divvying out where you're putting your lines. You're not just going line after line after line parallel to each other. You're gonna want some differentiation between your trees. Obviously you're gonna see some just branches, which I need to switch my paintbrush up to do these. Need a thinner brush. There we go. So you're gonna want some more diagonal lines, kind of like I started to do here on my first tree. These are ones you're not going to see all of because they're going to be covered by leaves. Less leaves than the summer because it's painting a fall, but you're still only going to see parts of them. And I'm gonna do some like bushes down here, little. And this is all just where you think you see the best place for a branch or a tree trunk. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed up my process, and then we'll get to the next step after we let things dry. Alright, our next step is to add some leaves. So, I'm gonna take this brush again. And first I'm gonna go in with some yellow. And just add onto those branches and trees that we made to make them stand out a little bit more. Adding in more highlight to the spots that are a little brighter on my previous background painting. Just lightening those up even more so that we're taking the formation of a tree, but we're not going super hyper focused on each individual leaf. We're looking at it like it's a bulk tree. Same with over here. Just brightening up those spots. And once you get further back here, you're gonna kind of lose the individual shape of the tree, and they kind of blend together. Adding some red here. So you're gonna basically do this over your trunks, all over the trees, lightening and darkening spots, having your 3 colors ready to make into like puffs of leaves basically. And I'm just kind of dabbing that paint on. If you can see, I'm like going up and down motion with my paintbrush, so I'm not like globbing paint on completely. And then going over some spots like this to get a textured effect, and then not really blending the 2 colors together, but adding even more differentiation. Get some orange in there. So I'm just going to continue to do that all the way throughout where I have branches and stuff. So like down here where there are more bushes, get some of that yellow and just add some highlights in the bush and form them more like bushes, lower to the ground than the full trees. So I can have one more yellow and orange bush here, and then this one can be more of a red and orange. Just mixing in those colors. So go ahead and do this on your canvas or watch me complete it, but I'm gonna speed up the time so this is not gonna be as long as it would take me. It's gonna be sped up. Alright, so next I think I'm gonna make some more brown and go in and add even smaller trunks and tree limbs to my forest back here. Because I feel like there's some blank space that needs to be filled in. So basically with yours, you can kind of eyeball where you think some need to be added in. And then add to your forest, and if you need to cover it up with your fall colors, then you stop and let it dry and plop some more color over where you just didn't quite like where you put a branch or a trunk, or any little mistake that you think doesn't quite look how you wanted it to. Okay, so for my final step, I'm going to add some lettering to mine. I'm gonna write out happy fall, y'all, and just add that on top. There's two ways you can do this. If you don't want to go in with paint and just freehand paint it, you can make a stencil, which I have a guide to do to make your own if you don't have a Cricut or someone that can print you one of those sticker label stencils. It's an older video, so the quality won't be as good, but it does instruct you on how you can go about creating one. Also, you could use charcoal or possibly chalk, because both of those things you can kind of wipe away easier, over and right over your painting. And then because you have your handwritten letters out, you can then go in with your paintbrush and paint over that, so that you have the letters blocked out and you know your area that you're trying to paint in. And just go ahead and go in like that. But I am going to freehand mine and finish up my painting. Alright, so that's my completed painting. I hope you enjoyed painting along with me, and that maybe you created your own painting along with me. I do have other fall themed how to draws. I think I have a couple how to paint, so go ahead and check those out on my channel. Give this video a like if it helped you out, and also subscribe for more art videos, and I will see you in next week's video.